You didn't just lose your patience in that moment. You were already overwhelmed before it even happened. And most of the time, you don't even realize it's happening. And if you don't see that part, you'll keep thinking it's about being more patient when it's actually about something else entirely. In this video, I'll show you what's actually happening before you lose your patience, why most self-care advice doesn't actually help, and what to start doing differently so you're not constantly hitting that point of overload. Most people think of self-care as something you do after a hard day, like once you're already overwhelmed, once you've already lost your patience, then you try to recover. But if you're already at that point, you're actually way past the point where self-care would have helped. And I think that's where this gets really confusing, because it makes it feel like you're doing something wrong, when really you're just getting support too late. So let's talk about what's actually happening before those moments. So what does that actually mean, being overloaded? Because it's usually not one big thing. It's all the small things that don't stop, and none of them feel like the problem. It's holding everything in your head, what needs to happen, what you can't forget, what's coming later. It's constant decisions. What to make, what to say, what to do next. It's interruptions, switching tasks, noise, movement, being needed all day long, and none of it feels like too much on its own, but it doesn't reset. Your brain just keeps carrying it forward. So by the time something small happens, you're not reacting to just that moment. You're reacting from everything you've been carrying all day. And that's what overload actually is. It's not that you can't handle things, it's that you've already been handling too much for too long. So when you're in that state, when your brain is already carrying all of that, what you lose isn't knowledge, it's capacity. Because in those moments, you actually do know how you want to respond. You've thought about it before, you've tried to do it differently, but in that moment, there's no space. There's no pause between what happens and how you react. So it comes out faster, sharper, more intense than you meant it to. It's not that you don't know what to do. It's that you don't have the capacity in that moment to do it. And that's a really different problem, because now this isn't about trying harder. It's about what your system can actually handle in that moment. So the shift becomes this, not how do I recover better, but how do I not get to that point as often? And this is where I think about it as build capacity, not burnout. That's the mantra I want you to say to yourself. Build capacity, not burnout. By not adding more things to your day, but changing how much your system is carrying during the day. Because real self-care isn't about escaping your life for a little while. It's about making your life take less out of you in the first place. So what does this actually look like during the day? Not in a big, overwhelming way, but in small things that take pressure off your brain. Because this isn't about adding more. It's about carrying less. So one way this can look is not trying to hold everything in your head, having one place where things live so your brain isn't constantly trying to remember everything, and simplifying decisions, not redeciding the same things over and over again. So there's less friction in your day, or building in small pauses, not long breaks, not anything complicated, just moments where your system can reset before it hits the edge. And sometimes it's even lowering the expectation of how much you're trying to do at once, Because when everything is running at full capacity all day, there's nowhere for your brain to go when something goes wrong. And another way this can look is giving yourself permission to not respond right away. Because most things feel urgent in the moment, but they're actually not. And when your capacity is low, responding immediately is usually when things come out in a way you don't like. So instead of reacting right then, you buy yourself a little time. You come back to it when you have more capacity. This is so important because that one shift alone can change a lot. And these things might not look like self-care, but they're what actually protect your capacity so you don't get to that point as often. And that is why this approach actually works. Because you're not just trying to be more patient in the moment. You're changing how much your system is carrying before the moment even happens. So when something goes wrong, you have more space, more buffer, more capacity to pause instead of react. And that's what makes everything we talked about in the last video actually possible. That support, don't shame approach, it's a lot harder to do when you're already at the edge because there's just nothing left to work with. But when you start building capacity during the day, those moments don't hit the same way. Still might not respond perfectly, but you're not as close to the edge all the time. And that changes what happens next. So the goal isn't to be more patient. It's not to be at the edge as often, and certainly not all day long. Because when you have more capacity, you naturally respond differently. Not because you tried harder, but because you actually had the capacity to.